Right, welcome ladies and gentlemen. Alec Baldwin shoots himself, pun intended, in the foot during another Rust interview with Chris Cuomo this time. And is doubling down on the claim that he did not pull the trigger, but that is after the FBI has basically said, no, that's physically impossible. You're talking absolute bollocks. So, this guy, every time he opens his mouth, is just painstaking. Every single time. Makes great content, of course, as tragic as this obviously is. But it's just baffling why he's continuing down this path. It doesn't make any sense. And he's not, well, I was going to say he's not an idiot. He clearly is an idiot. But you'd think he would have gone, crap, yeah, that report, counters what I've already said. I should probably change that a little bit. Maybe. Just a fraction. Maybe. Just be like, I've got no idea. I don't believe I pulled the trigger. Something along those lines. I mean, I'm sure there's a way you could word it where his lawyers would have been happy with it. But let's take a look, right? And again, this is, if you don't know what this is, Alec Baldwin is the executive producer on a film called Rust. Obviously, it's probably never going to be finished now. And he shot and killed the cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Now, there's obviously multiple layers to this. The culpability and criminal sort of negligence, not necessarily all down to Alec Baldwin. Of course, I'm not saying that. I've been a big proponent of the armourer being, largely at blame to a certain degree, but then all of the executive producers as well, of which Alec Baldwin is one, and even the first assistant director who shouted cold gun. I mean, it very clearly wasn't a cold gun. So there's loads of layers to this. So don't assume that I'm just saying Alec Baldwin is at fault, because I'm really not. And also, that would be completely incorrect. He is not just the one to blame. But obviously, he did. The result of his actions did lead to someone dying. So we do have to focus on this a little bit, especially when he's coming out and saying, I didn't pull the trigger, when the FBI report has said, no, you pulled the trigger. So Alec Baldwin recently made some fairly inflammatory comments during a killer interview, the puns in this article, with former CNN anchor Chris Cuomo. Chief amongst them is his claim that his status as one of Rust producers precluded him from being held legally responsible for the killing of Helena Hutchins. Now, I think this is surprising because being a producer and being one of the key executive producers on board, he would have been, essentially a go-to guy for issues. And, he was one of the financial backers. So it's surprising that he believes that removes all responsibility for him. Like legal responsibility. How does it? You would have been in part to blame for the child armourer being hired, as well as given double duties, which is unprofessional. So it's a very surprising statement to make. But furthermore, of course, because he just can't help himself, the actor claims that mainstream media outlets are out to get him following the tragic incident that ended the life of his film's cinematographer and injured its co-director, Joel Souza, who, winded up in hospital as well. I mean, mainstream media, it's not a conspiracy, Alec. You did shoot someone, right? Like, we need to talk about it. We need to take a look at this and discuss it. It's not a conspiracy theory. The gun that you were holding did lead to someone dying. So we need to talk about it. Not a conspiracy. No one's out to get you. Sure, some people want your head, but that's because you're a bit of a dickhead. And, you open your mouth and say real, nonsense stuff towards people. Very inflammatory statements. Now, Baldwin's latest denial came not a day after the FBI concluded that the gun that killed Hutchins and injured Souza could not have been fired without pulling the trigger. Everyone knows this based on the type of gun that it is. A Colt 45, I think. And this is a statement that they made. The gun could not be made to fire without a pull of the trigger while the working internal components were intact and functional, and the firearm's hammer was fully cocked, concluded the FBI's investigation, as per documents obtained by ABC News. So really firm, really firm. Now, the FBI's investigation contradicted the statement made by Baldwin during the first interview he did with ABC News' George Stephanopoulos, wherein the actor, I know I said that wrong, wherein the actor not only claimed that he had not pulled the trigger, but in a second contradiction, this time of his initial recollection of the event, also said he didn't cock the gun's hammer either. Which, I get it. you know, your brain might be a bit hazy on things, might have gone into shock, but goddamn, your lawyer should have prepped you. And he said this. So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see this? She says, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun and I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and I let go of the hammer and the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer and the gun goes off. Claiming that he did not cock the gun, Baldwin would at a later recall that he was pulling the hammer as far back as I could without cocking it. Just loads and loads of contradictions. Now, speaking to the equally disgraced Cuomo, because again, you know, he is disgraced now, Baldwin insisted that he did not pull the trigger, asserting that he was merely fanning the gun when it went off. If you pull the hammer back and you don't lock the hammer, if you pull the hammer back pretty far in old Western movies, you'd see someone fan the hammer of the gun. The hammer didn't lock. You pulled it back to an extent where it would fire the bullet without you pulling the trigger and without you locking the hammer. FBI contradicts that, mate. It's not, you know, it's not conspiracy, buddy. Like, it's not. But, yeah, the FBI contradicts that. So shamelessly shifting blame to Assistant Director David Halls, whom he refers to as the film's safety officer, which they are, actually, so that is right. Baldwin went on to say, the man who's the principal safety officer on the set of the film declared that the gun was safe when he handed it to me, which he did. That is a statement which even David Halls, the assistant director, states he said. But again, he's just one in the chain of custody. He is not fully to blame on that. The person who, yeah, sure, he's the safety officer. I fully accept that. But he only has to go on the expertise of the armourer, right? So the person who is the principal safety officer declared in front of the entire assemblage that this is a cold gun. So why did he say that if he didn't know, if he hadn't checked? But also, it's the armourer who stated she didn't check. The point is, all of us were told that everything was cool and you can relax, and we're working with gun that's Sage to rehearse with. But he explained it to me effectively. That's exactly what can happen if you pull a hammer back and let it go if there's a live round. Yeah, but the FBI says no. So there's only one question to ask here. Who put a live round in the gun? That's it. There is no other question to ask. I mean, it's not. That's not it as well. Like, there's more to it, but okay, fine. Because if you're, you know, if the FBI is saying that the gun couldn't have gone off without the gun, you know, the trigger being pulled, then you are not adhering to gun safety protocols either, Alec. And that's also a question to be explored, right? Like, sure, the gun wouldn't have fired without a live round, but you still shouldn't be pointing a gun at people and pulling the trigger. That goes against gun safety. So yeah, not good. Conway then asked the actor for insight into what his lawyers were telling him about the possibility that were the tragic incident to be ruled an accident, he could still be held accountable for his actions as one of the film's producers. It depends on what grade of producer you are. There are managerial producers who raise the money and spend the money to hire people, and there are creative producers who come in and only authorities they have are over the script casting, and that's the category I fall into. However, Cuomo interjected, wherein he noted that Baldwin was getting sued just the same. Baldwin clarified, well, the production's getting sued, and I'm one of 5 producers that is named in the lawsuit, and we are all indemnified by an insurance policy. So the actor took one last shot at mainstream media outlets, accusing them of attempting to harm his already tarnished reputation with the use of rather contrived and disturbing analogy. His statement was, if George Bush's mother, if Barbara Bush fell through the ice on a pond and I waded out into the pond and saved her life, the mainstream media would say I groped her sexually when I was pulling her out of the ice. I groped her, I squeezed her breast while I was pulling her out of the pond. What the fuck statement is this? My point is, it doesn't matter what you do. The ones that are out to get you are out to get you. And in this case, not even so much that kind of trash press. I mean, anything Rupert Murdoch and anything the New York Post. Fucking what? I used to think it was, this is at the publication, I used to think it was something that cops and firemen and doormen read for the sports page and all the rest of that vomit that constitutes the Post. I thought, who reads this? But I was surprised to learn some of the people over the years who read the Post. I mean, this dude's fucking mental. Really, really mental. Massively. And then obviously he got massively frustrated by all of this, and Baldwin next condemned the media for speculating on the chain of events that led up to the tragic shooting, and said everybody's waiting for a sheriff's report. The district attorney is not bound by the report. The DA can bring charges or not bring charges, regardless of what the report says, but everyone must wait for that report. So while we wait ad nauseum for that report, I know that every single person on the set of the film knows what happened. Yeah, but you're being sued by people on the set, mate. Really? And the people that are talking the loudest about what happened or speculating about what happened were not on the set of the film? No, of course not. But that doesn't mean people can't talk about it. What absolute nonsense this guy spouts. They talk on and on and on about what if this and what if that, and have dined out on this. And the thing that they have in common is nobody was there, and everybody who was there knows exactly what happened. They know exactly who's to blame. Well, who is it then, mate? So, oh God, I don't know. I mean, look, this guy's such a douche canoe. What an absolute bumhole of a person. You know, to sit there and say, well, I didn't pull the trigger. It's like, well, yeah, but okay, but the FBI report says you did. And it's just multiple statements that just keep contradicting itself. So hand on over to you. What do you think? Let me know down below. Cheers. Take care. Also, ladies and gentlemen, consider checking out my Teespring store. Supporting the channel via this way does go a long way, but also not only that, you do get to wear some awesome merch. These are one-of-a-kind designs designed for me by my graphic designer. We of course have our Clown World line, which is in mugs, hoodies, t-shirts. We've got Space Jeebus, and then for something a little bit different, we of course have right down at the bottom right here, we have our Pulsar GTIR. Also, ladies and gentlemen, consider checking out and supporting my second channel, which is Car Nonsense. This is a vlog and car channel. You can find links to this in the description box, along with my Teespring. Please do consider supporting.